Hello and welcome to Skill Acquisition or Acquiring Movement Skills screencast. Today's screencast is going to be focusing on perception. Now, for some groups, you had a little look at a kind of a video clip, which was Cristiano Ronaldo heading the ball, and we kind of had a look at how the memory process would influence his ability to be able to head a ball into the goal just by seeing, detecting the football or the body cues from the crosser. So what we're going to have a look at is how perception is directly linked to the multi-store model of memory. So perception we've looked at before, we're going to have a look at that, and then the massively important part of your kind of homework is to have a look at this concept. So we've said multi-store model of memory. Now, in order to be able to multi-store model of memory, we need to have things stored in our long-term memory in order to retrieve them, so our short-term memory perform them. In order to be able to interpret information, which we'll have a look at in a second, we have to be able to detect, compare and recognize plans in your long-term memory and retrieve them to be able to perform them. So what we're going to have a look at, if we're saying that memory or performance of skills is vital, you've got motor programs stored in your long-term memory, perceptions relying upon it, it's absolutely huge that we can kind of come up with or identify, explain and give an example of strategies that are used for people to improve long-term memory. Now, it's huge for you, because if you don't get strategies to improve your long-term memory storage in terms of your academic performance, you're going to struggle in exams. To me, the biggest kind of deciding or discriminating factor between A grades and below is whether you can memorize things. So what we're going to have a look at is what strategies people use to memorize things. So, quick point then. From last lesson, I asked you to look at the Cristiano Ronaldo video clip, and then I said to you I was going to send you a screencast on perception. Okay, so perception is basically refers to interpretation. Now, you remember that from the perceptual mechanism. So what we're going to say then, in order to have a good interpretation, there are three underpinning concepts, and these three underpinning concepts are directly linked to the multi-store model of memory. So we're saying perception is the process of interpreting information via DCR, detection, comparison, recognition. As you can see, detection and filtering is linked very much to short-term sensory store. Comparison is directly linked to short-term memory, and recognition is directly linked to long-term memory. So I think this is very simple. All you've got to know is that an exam question you might get is describe the effect of perception on the performance of movement skills. Well, perception is the interpretation of information via detection, e.g. filtering using selective attention, comparison, comparing info in short-term memory, long-term memory, recognition, if new information matches stored information, recognized and retrieved to short-term memory to perform. Then you would have to say, what is the effect then? So, okay, we looked at Cristiano Ronaldo, who had fantastic perception. So he had a fantastic interpretation using detection, detecting the ball flight very quickly. He compared what he saw, the new information in his short-term memory, with the information in the long-term memory, and then he was very quickly able to retrieve or decode the information when he recognized it. And that has a direct impact on performance, because it will either improve, so good perception will mean you have a faster reaction time, or poor perception means you have a slower reaction time. The one guy you saw, Ronald, the ball went flying past him before he'd even reacted to it because his perception was poor. So he didn't have this DCR process that underpins perception. So what would you get in the exam? You would need to be able to say this via this leads to this. Okay, and that is the kind of key thing that I need in your Cornell notes. Now, moving on from that, as I went back here, we said, right, you've got to have, and this is a little kind of subsection, but I'm planning this summer, 10-mark question is going to be a combination of using a sporting example to describe the multi-store model of memory. Part 2, describe or explain strategies that can be used to improve long-term memory. Okay, so what are they? There are certain strategies that are used to improve long-term memory storage. The first one is enjoyment. That is your point. In order to explain it, and I suppose I should just explain this to you now, you basically have a kind of a sentence structure strategy here. So every time you talk about a strategy to improve long-term memory, you talk about the fact, so for enjoyment, you start with if information, or information, and you finish with it will increase long-term memory storage. So you've always got a sentence starter or sentence stem is information, and usually the sentence kind of finisher will be increased long-term memory storage. Okay, so for example, enjoyment. If information is presented in a fun way, so anything I've emboldened and underlined is the descriptive phrase that the mark scheme will have in alignment to enjoyment, it increases long-term memory storage. E.g., if a player enjoys shooting in football, they're more likely to memorise the coaching points of it. Okay, so a shooting drill, if they do shoot and they enjoy that shooting drill, they're more likely to remember the coaching points of it. Another strategy that we've talked about for short-term memory, but in order to encode it into long-term memory, is things called chunking. Okay, so the strategy called chunking. Chunking refers to if information is grouped together, this will increase long-term memory storage. E.g., a line-out call in rugby. Somebody might just shout a number. Okay, that number unlocks a grouped sequence of events that would involve players moving, where the ball's going. It might include what's going to happen after the ball has been caught by one of the 7 players in a line-out, and you take it from there. So that's what that means. Going on from there, uniqueness. Okay, so if information is presented in a novel or a different way, this means that it will increase long-term memory storage. So I try to do this all the time. So I will try to give you an acronym that is novel. I'll try and give you a memory hook that is different. And the reason why I do that is because it's unique. And if it's unique, it sticks in your brain and it will increase your long-term memory storage. So for example, you have a young child they keep a netball player. Ball's thrown to them, they drop it every time. Now, how you can get around that is saying, right, they're just not understanding the coaching points for catching. So a coach might say, every time the ball comes to you, you think W. And when you think W, you put the W shape with your hands, and this then will help them because it's unique, it's different. A young netball player might never have heard this before. Every time a ball comes to them, they put a W up. Because of that, they can start to catch the ball better. So obviously you don't have to go into the detail I just have, but that is what it means. So I'm trying to talk around it. You only have to write what's on here. I'm talking around it to hopefully embed your understanding. Going on from there then. Next strategy to improve long-term memory storage, and I think this is the huge thing, practice. Now, practice or rehearsal can be split into 2. Ultimately, you have this kind of concept of saying, right, a physical, if information is repeated, ignore the spelling mistake there. So if information is repeated, e.g. practicing 50 conversions in rugby, 50 free throws in basketball, this will aid memory storage. So you learn, or for you, it will be practicing exam questions leading up to the exam, okay? That will help it stick in your long-term memory. Another way people use, elite sports performers use mental rehearsal. So this means you repeat the visualization of a perfect conversion in rugby, a perfect free throw in basketball, and this will therefore increase long-term memory storage. Now, going on from that, you do something well in a lesson, a teacher says well done. If you do something well in a netball game, e.g. you make a successful pass and the coach praises you, this has a name. Psychologically, it's called positive reinforcement. A positive reinforcement is the use of praise, and by doing that you strengthen the stimulus-response bond, which will increase your long-term memory storage. So I've said here, praise tackle technique in rugby. So for example, you might say, well done for going cheek to cheek when tackling in rugby. By doing that, the stimulus is a player running towards you in rugby. When you tackle, the response, you use cheek to cheek technique. If a coach praises you for the response, it strengthens the bond between the stimulus, e.g. a player running at you, and the response, e.g. perfect tackle technique. That praise strengthens a bond, so in the future you think, oh, I remember that now, the coach praised me for doing correct tackle technique. Therefore, it's going to be memorised or stored in your long-term memory. The final one we're going to look at, in fact I might add one more at the end of this, so simplicity. If you want, for example, as a teacher, if I want students to remember things, my job is to condense a load of information into kind of small coaching points, or condense the coaching points. So you might try to make a coaching point within a skill, 1 to 2 items. So for example, a young person is learning to pass the ball in football. I'm not going to say to them, you're going to look at, right, the coaching points for today's session are non-kicking football inside the ball, back swing straight, use the side of your foot, keep your head over the ball, keep your chin over the ball, follow through to the direct. Straight away I'm losing them. So I might say, if I'm doing an activity, the focus of today's session is going to be on using the side of your foot when kicking the ball or trying to pass the ball. So you condense the coaching points to 1 or 2. This then means there is a less perceptual load on the performer, therefore there is more chance of it storing in the long-term memory. Now the final one, which isn't on here, if you can make this extra note, is called linking. So if a performer can link points from a previously taught skill, e.g., let's say for example a young performer has practiced the overarm throwing technique in rounders, okay, so you say a sideways on, twist your hips and throw. Now basically, if for example a coach is then going to introduce a javelin session, okay, they might say to them, right, remember when you did the overarm cricket throw or rounders throw, you had to get sideways on and twist your hips to throw it when you're executing the throw. This is exactly the same as the javelin, so exactly the same movement. So therefore, linking involves using a previously learned skill, as coaching points, and applying them to a new skill, such as overarm throw, link to javelin, and because of the link between something you've done before and now, this leads to increased efficiency of long-term memory storage. So as you can see, usually starts with something like information, so condensed into coaching points, whatever. You go through each section. Your job is to come to the lesson with 7 memory strategies for long-term memory, and then you also have a little section on perception and 3 underpinning concepts of perception. Okay, thank you very much.